For the first time since the horrible insurrection, we get to see the unedited footage of January 6th. We find out COVID vaccine policy is flipping on its head, and it turns out language matters. And when you try to censor it, it makes you look like an idiot. We're going to do all of that on this week's Politiocracy. Hello, I'm your host, Ryan King. This is Politiocracy. I have so many weird things to go over this week. I think, I have some interesting takes on what's been happening, I think, in the world of pop culture and also vaccine policy. But first, happy Detransition Awareness Day. I don't know if you're aware of that because I'm sure that doesn't come up on a bulletin board at your work. I have a list at my work currently of all of the most progressive days of the year. Happy Drag Awareness Day. Happy Gay Pride Transition Your Kids Month. It's very strange. So in the middle of International Women's Month, there's also Detransition Awareness Month, and if you're not aware of that, that's because nobody's talking about that. But if you go onto Twitter right now, you can see the hundreds and hundreds of posts of people showing what they did, taking hormones, maybe even going as far as cutting their breasts off, lots of things. But you can go right now, just go check out hashtag Detransition Awareness Day and, show your support because it does make a difference. It does get out there. Some people saw it. I saw it trending earlier today, and that made me happy because there are a lot of good stories. We only hear the bad, and a lot of people on this side of the aisle tend to focus on the very, very bad sides of it, where it's like, look at this person transitioned, and this person's falling apart, and this person's being fired for speaking out, and this person's, look at all the bad. But you got to see the good side of it too, the awakenings that happen, the people that are like, I transitioned, I made a mistake, I saw the wrong side, I found out that the grass wasn't always greener. We find that in the suicide rates because even in the best, most liberal argument, you can see suicide rates do not decrease. They only stay stagnant. So if and that's after transitioning. And it seems like when people transition, it doesn't make things better. It only, at best, stays stagnant. So if your problems are there before your transition, they will be there after. There is not a medical procedure that fixes things. People who have bad self-image don't just, fix it through getting a boob job. So the same thing works with transitioning, and that's why you have to have detransition awareness. And if we're going to be perfectly partisan down the middle and not trying to just get progressive woke points, don't you think that should be on the docket? Don't you think that should be on the calendar? Don't you think Detransition Awareness Day should be like, hey, I get it that there's all these people that are transitioning and whatever, they're disenfranchised, but you know who's even more disenfranchised? The people who did it and realized they were wrong. Nobody hears about them. Nobody talks about them. There's a whole feed on Twitter right now that you can go look of hundreds and hundreds of boys and girls who transitioned to the opposite gender, realized that this was wrong and went back. So there has to be a percentage of people that are living in denial right now saying, I'm happy. And they're Joker smiling in the mirror as they paint their face and pretend like everything's okay, but it's not. And that's sad. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is a positive start to things. Speaking of trans issues, in my area, Durham County, it's just south of here, a person was suspended for transphobia. And this was reported by True North. They are one of the independent journalists around here. They reported on the Freedom Convoy. That's kind of how I heard about them first. But what happened here is a person was scrutinized by what they followed and retweeted on social media, and also their position on transitioning kids, which seems like it should be like across the board. We should all just go, yeah, they should wait. Like, oh, yeah, you can't get a tattoo or a piercing or anything underage. So yeah, you definitely wait. I would say maybe to 25. I wouldn't even say 18 because you want to wait until your brain's fully developed before you start loading it with puberty blockers and surgeries. But the horrible, hateful, disgusting things that this lady said. So the Durham County School Board, they were upset at this lady because she was retweeting hate speech from the likes of Jordan Peterson and libs of TikTok. Ugh. Because they're questioning the meaning of cisnormative. And if you could ever even question what cisnormative is, then you're an idiot and you shouldn't be on the internet and you shouldn't be teaching our kids because that should be default settings. When we factory reset you and you Men in Black blind yourself, one of the only things that you should understand is this weird trans progressive phrasing that we've all made up. Cisnormative, that just means normal. It's just a longer way of saying normal. In a world where kids can't even say charisma, they got to say riz, and they got to shorten every single word. The only way to stay progressive is to elongate your words. You got to make sure that you're putting 6 or 7 syllables into a word before you're truly progressive. Because if you could just say, yeah, like they're just normal. They're like a boy likes a girl. Because like that's what's been normal for all of time. So like we're just going to call like it's like the mean. Like it's pretty repeated through all of history. So like that's the standard. That's our control group. And the rest of you are tests. So why can't we just say that? Because that's just hateful. So you have to say cisnormative because that sounds like ugh. Sounds like ugh. You're what? You're cisnormative? Sounds disgusting. Like what? Are you a boomer? Ugh. Just maybe be a little bisexual so you can be cool with the Zoomers. But so that was her first offense. Her second offense was she questioned the school board's policy by not informing the parents when students change their gender identity. So the policy of the Durham County School Board is that if a student expresses that they are a different gender, then you accept that and you tell no one. It's a don't ask, don't tell, except tell me, and I'm going to keep your secret. So you can, in theory, I'm not saying this is happening, but it definitely is. You could persuade people into thinking that they're a different gender because your brain is mush then, and you can mold it into whatever you want. And then when they do, get no outside influence from the parents, from who they were raised by, from anyone else. Just keep it a secret, so then they can come to school and do what girls when I went to school, they used to just like take off their pants and had short skirts on. So they would wear something not slutty with their parents, and then they would take it off. The equivalent of that today is when I'm at school, I'm a man, and when I'm at home, I'm a woman. And like you have to pretend you got two different identities like you're fucking Spider-Man. That's ridiculous to me. But so this was a quote from Miss Stone here. I was a little bit disturbed to see that you would keep things private with the student and not let the parents know what's going on with the student. And it even goes into whether the student undergoes surgery and other procedures. I'm assuming this privacy starts at the age of 16, said Stone. And that was enough to put her on administrative leave. That questioning the narrative is enough to shut it all down. If you say anything that's like, hey, happy Detransition Awareness Day, gone. Retweet Jordan Peterson, gone. Follow libs of TikTok, you're on a list at least. I think that's a problem. Because I had no idea what the political affiliation, the sexual identity, pronouns. We kind of assumed the pronouns. I know, bigotry. But back in the day, that's kind of what we did. Of any of my teachers, I knew none of that. The only time I knew that my teacher even had a significant other is they changed their name halfway through the year. One time, a teacher got married during the school year, and she changed her name. That's it. So the idea that you can you can form the identity of kids and then also keep that identity from their parents so there's no other outside influence. That seems problematic. That seems like you create a generation of detransitioners. That seems like you are the reason. If you ever wonder why the hate of detransition day exists, it's because of this. Because you wouldn't need to detransition if parents were talking kids through things like this. If you were like, yeah, that teacher's a little wacky. My mom got in fights with some of my teachers because they were stupid. Some of my teachers are dumb. You got to understand, I'm not even going to go and say a lot. Some teachers are very dumb. Very, very dumb. Have you ever met, this should put things into perspective for a lot of people. Have you ever met that girl when you were in school, maybe in college and high school, that was straight A's? She was a 90 average. You're like, how is she doing this? She's got like a 4.0 GPA, but like can't function day to day. Uses a fork backwards. You're like, what is wrong with you? Like there were a group of girls, honor roll when I went to high school. And I convinced them that there was no 11:14 at night. Now, this might sound stupid, but that's because I went into a long explanation that sounded scientific about how a day is not exactly 24 hours and there's a buffer time. Have you ever noticed how a clock that's not connected to the internet always seems to go up in time, and it's because of that extra minute? And our digital clocks reset that every day, but the analog clocks don't have that option. And they're like, oh yeah. And then they believe that. They might still believe that to this day. Some of them might be teachers. Just understand that. So book smart doesn't equate to actual intelligence. It's like just functioning day to day, like common sense, like things like, hey, parents should probably be involved in the transitioning of their kids is like a good thing. That is the issue here, is that a lot of people, it's that our teachers nowadays are the equivalent of like, I've never actually played the sport, but I read a lot about it. That's a teacher. A teacher nowadays is, oh yeah, I read about it. And that might get you far enough to get by because it seems like you understand, but it's not the same. It's not the same as actually being in there. It's the same as in every industry when you're like, why don't the people at the top of the food chain understand what it's like down here? And it's because they don't. They only see it on paper. So they only see the problems as they arise. It's exactly like this. So I think the only way that you do this is you go back to a situation of teachers aren't involved in the development of your sexual identity. Doesn't that seem normal? Doesn't that seem like the right thing to do? To me, that seems like the correct thing to do. So happy Transition Awareness Day. Don't sexualize your students. So Tucker Carlson. Before I get to Tucker Carlson, I wanted to just go over this. Elon Musk tweeted that the QAnon shaman should be released because when you see some of the clips, I showed it on the other podcast, the Clever Name podcast, the QAnon shaman spent most of his time at the Capitol. Sure, there's some crazy photos of him with an American flag standing on a desk or something, but it seems like pretty early on in the event, he was yelling to people to go home.
Respect your landmarks! Respect the Capitol! He said he saw on his Twitter account.
So to me, when I watch this video, there seems to be another person with a megaphone saying, let's stay a little longer. Let's stay. And the QAnon shaman saying, let's go home. Trying to get people to leave, actively doing what the Capitol Police should be doing, saying like, hey guys, it's time to go. Like even your president saying it's time to go, you leave, like herding the people out of there. But then he ends up in jail. And it seems like there's other people yelling, hell no, we're not going to leave. No, we're staying. Where are those people? Why are they? Is it just because this guy wore a funny headdress and Braveheart makeup? You paint your face, you get in trouble. Unless you're in Canada, then you become the prime minister. So Elon Musk tweeted that out. Now it's trending that you should free the QAnon shaman, James Chansley, I believe his name is. But he is currently behind bars. And I think that's ridiculous. When we see the full video from Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson got the full uncensored video from Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, which seems odd because that makes it so easily discredited by leftist media. Like, it's just like I've already seen the clips. I've already seen what the outpour from the left is that why does Tucker Carlson get it, a right-wing news media organization that can censor and doctor the stuff in any way. And I thought that's so funny because for some reason you guys probably had access to some of extra video that they've had, and yet we've only seen the same few clips over and over again of the few people that smashed a couple of things. But that seemed to be far the minority of the people there, like by astronomical numbers. When you watch this just start picturing a museum tour because that's more what we see here. So let's go through this with Tucker.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video
So just in the first couple of seconds of the clips, this is what we should have got from the beginning. Because what you can do now is that the leftist media has given you all of the bad clips. I can guarantee you that somebody scrubbed through all 40,000 hours and found every single thing of somebody lighting something on fire, somebody doing something, every bad clip you've seen. We never got to see any of the just, that was stupid. Like, I can't believe how dumb that was. And now we get to see that. And now you get to draw your own conclusion. And that's how the world used to work up until 15 minutes ago. It's very strange. So now you get to see what Fox News would say about the insurrection, the worst thing to happen for 9/11 too. You now get to see the bumbling idiots that walked past cops and picked up and cleaned up around them, and the massive numbers, not the bumbling fucking few people that we saw before, the probably hundreds of thousands of people that stood outside the Capitol protesting that they didn't believe that the election was right. Like, that's pretty significant. That's a huge significant factor to this. You're like, wow, that many people were not only believed the information, were inspired enough to go down to the Capitol to say, hey, what the fuck is going on? We need to know exactly what's going on here. And I think their intent was to peacefully protest. And I think a few assholes are always going to be there. It's like if you can say the same thing for every riot or every protest from Antifa or something like that, where somebody gets hit with a bike lock or somebody's severely injured with like a box cutter or something like that, and you're like, oh, that's just a couple of bad actors in there. Well, then you would have to say that again for this.
Does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day.
Yes.
Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful, they were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists, they were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th.
I've said this a couple of times before. It's a museum tour. It's a Jimmy Buffett concert. It's like one of those bus tours where people get to look around at stuff that they never get to see. They just want to see behind the curtain. There's a lot of people there that want justice. There was a few people there that wanted to smash things. And then there was a vast majority of people who were like, well, what's up? What's going on here? What's behind the curtain? Well, you guys never show us this, so I would like to see what's going on here.
Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system. Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began to get chaotic. Capitol police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
They're going to make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were...
Why? This is the question. If he was going to be arrested afterwards for these crimes, this is his crime. This is what his crime is. The crime wasn't anything else. He wasn't inciting violence. There wasn't anything else added to his sentence. His crime was trespassing, I guess. I don't exactly know. But the cops are guiding him through.
His allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him.
Oh my
Shoot him.
God. People. I've never heard that take before. Were you supposed to mow down this entire group of people? Was it supposed to be the no Russian scene in Call of Duty? I don't understand what you were expecting. This guy did the same crimes as everyone else. He just did it in a funny hat. That's what it seems like. He was guided around, and he got this picture taken the most because he looked like Braveheart, and that's the story. The story is they needed a face for the raid, and they weren't going to get Donald Trump. They thought they were going to bring down Donald Trump and get him arrested for inciting an insurrection, the worst thing that's ever happened to a nation. But this is not. If this is the worst thing that's happened to your nation, you live in such a coddled fucking nation that, like, how can you not remember terrible things that have happened? This is not the worst thing. There's a generation growing up now that you have taught that this is the worst thing that's happened, worse than 9/11. They believe that. Go out on the street and ask them, what's worse, January 9th or 9/11? And they will tell you that this Capitol raid diminished the last ounce of democracy we had, and it's all QAnon shaman's fault.
It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley, and the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next to him place him under arrest? Until now, no one could even prove that even happened. But it did.
Subscribe.
So there is an insane amount of stuff coming out. Tucker's probably got to go through, not him personally, but his team has to go through an insane amount of footage. And I don't know what we're going to get. If they find anything that says the opposite, I don't think we see it. I don't think if they found some stuff that the leftist media didn't find that's really, really bad, I don't think we're going to see that. So we're only going to get to see the opposite perspective. So we're going to get the two extremes from this, and it lands somewhere in the middle where there's a few people there that were really bad and they ruined things for people, and there were some people who followed along. It's like that video of a crazy guy dancing. One crazy guy doing something crazy isn't a big deal, but one guy joins in, that makes a third guy join in, then a fourth, then a fifth, and it snowballs. So one crazy guy breaks into the building, they open the door, one guy goes, well, the door's open, and walks in. That second guy created a flood. Everyone goes, well, if he's going in, why can't I go in? Well, and then once two people, everyone has their number. Once four people's in, once five people, once 100 are in, now you feel like you're missing out. So let's walk in. And they just bumbled their way through the Capitol and took flyers and picked up and took pictures. That's what happened. And that's the worst thing that's ever happened to the U.S. democracy. I guess if that's you live a splendid life then. It must be the greatest country in the world if that's the worst thing that's ever happened. Congratulations. So, all of, like, when we go back and we look at the last couple of years, there's been a lot of insurrections, Capitol raids, worse than 9/11 experiences for the governments. And I don't know if why aren't people putting this spider web together? Like, the people in a lot of these Western worlds aren't happy. And why is there a Capitol raid in America, in probably the most prosperous country in the world? Why are truckers going down to Ottawa in Canada? Why are Dutch farmers protesting in Holland? Why are there raids in India and Haiti? And why are all these Capitol buildings being raided by the people in crazy amounts over a short period of time? This is a lot. When you heard about people trying to overthrow the government 10 years ago, it was in a godforsaken country that probably needed to be overthrown. And that should speak volumes to what's going on now. We are now the godforsaken countries that need to be overthrown. That's what's going on. Because if the people feel that need to go out and attack their own government, if that's what you're saying, shouldn't you start looking inward? People don't usually like to start uprisings. It's usually I'll deal with this. I'll deal with this. If you push them too far is when the point of attack starts happening. So if people are willing in mass numbers to form on the Capitol, you should start looking inward. And if you're not, then you know what you're doing. Like, if you're not looking inward, then you absolutely know what's going on here, and you don't care what the people want. The people don't matter, and you'll just disparage them in any way possible. So I think there's going to be more insurrections, as they say, and I think there'll be more insurrection-y as they progress, because the way that they tried to shut down and make an example of this means that they're scared. Means that the people at the top are like, holy shit, they're realizing it's a bug's life all over again. When they realize their numbers, they're going to start coming after you, and that's what's going on. And I think that's, if they're good enough with their scare tactics, I think it's enough to put people back into their place. What you can do is you stomp down the people that are trying to rise up, and you give freedom back to the people that didn't. And then they'll, a little bit. You don't have to give a lot, and give the ability to pull the ripcord again, but that's what you do. And then the people who are on the fence of joining the rise will not, because they got some freedom back. They're like, okay, things went back. You guys did it. Good job. And then the people who got punished will never do it again, because they're punished now. They're probably in a prison. And the people who didn't get punished and feel like they got away with it are like, don't want to do that again. So it's a good system that they've created here. So in Canada, the small fringe minority was all about vaccine policies. And they made it seem like it was a vaccine policy for the states, but it wasn't. They were firing anybody who worked in a government transportation industry, and that was almost everyone. Unless you owned your own truck and you had like a small business that you were just doing things yourself, and even then, there were going to be some sorts of regulations on you. And it was all for the COVID vaccine that everybody has turned around on. That's what that was. You were holding ground on something that didn't work, and we know you were wrong. And the group of people that went there just wanted you to listen to them. They thought you were wrong at the time, and you didn't listen to them, and you shut them down with force and said that we needed an Emergencies Act, which is only pulled out in the most desperate of times. And that's what they had to do to shut down a protest where you were wrong, where it turns out at the end, the vaccine was not the way out of the pandemic. It was the way for you to let us out, but it wasn't the way out. It wasn't the way to stop the virus. It was the way for you to go, good job, you complied. Now you can get your freedom back. That's what that was. And you crushed anybody who did. It's disgusting. And when I look back at the Freedom Convoy, here's some clips. Here's some clips of the Freedom Convoy that was the R9/9/11. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to the Canadian government ever. People playing Connect 4 and bouncy castles with giant Legos and their kids honking their horns and making it kind of inconvenient for you. That was a world that we lived in where this needed to be shut down. I see pride flags. There's progressive people here. This is not a small fringe minority of racists. This is people who care. These are like the most caring people in the world. The people who aren't caring, if you notice, are the ones that pretend to be nice to your face and then talk so much shit behind your back. And that's what it seems like modern day progressive leftism is just going, well, you're not smart enough to see this, so I'm going to just do my thing. But that's okay, honey. It's some weird passive aggressive thing. And then behind the scenes, you're just going to go, well, they're too dumb to understand what we're doing here. We need to fix it for climate change, for gender equality, for nothing, for whatever you can think of. Whatever flu season comes around, that's what we need to do. And we need to shut down the racist misogynists that are white supremacists. Hold on, let me take off my blackface while I give this speech. It's a very odd system that we live in. So I strongly believe more protests are coming, even though Freedom Convoy 2 happened pretty recently and it was nothing. It was pretty nothing. So last week I was talking about Alan Dershowitz and his vaccine policy and what he said. And I found it interesting because I pulled up his book about vaccine mandates, and it was The Case for Vaccine Mandates by Alan Dershowitz. It's still available on Amazon and stuff, but I still had the link sitting in my files of things to go over, and I pulled it up. I randomly clicked on it because I was like, oh yeah, I still have this, and it's gone from Simon & Schuster. And that's like a week after Alex Stein called him on his shit and said that you absolutely promoted vaccine mandates and policies and said some pretty horrible things about it. And then Simon & Schuster took it off their website, which is interesting. I don't know. It's still available. It's still out there. It's not like it's being wiped from the internet, but it's not on Simon & Schuster anymore. Even when you look for it manually, it's gone. So maybe they're trying to separate themselves from people who have such bigoted statements like the vaccine mandates aren't required anymore. It's interesting. So, but the policy in Canada has officially changed, which is interesting. I'd reported on it last week. The UK government was saying that they're not going to be giving boosters to people under 50, and then said that it was fake if that they're not banning people from getting the vaccine. It's just an interesting terminology that they've used. They've just changed it from you're not allowed to get the vaccine if you're not immune compromised or over a certain age, but we're not banning you from getting it. But that's interesting, because now Canada has followed suit with a simple thing. Now, on March 3rd, 2023, the Public Health Agency of Canada released guidance from the National Advisory Committee on Immunization on additional COVID vaccine boosters during the spring of 2023. Individuals at high risk of severe illness due to COVID-19. This guidance is based on current evidence and vaccine principles by NIAC experts. So, this is the qualification for getting COVID boosters now. So if you wanted to get a COVID booster now in 2023, past March, you have to be an adult 80 years of age or older, an adult 65 to 79 years of age, particularly if they don't have a known history of getting COVID. Interesting. That was not used before. When you talked about natural immunity before, that was completely shut out. No, you weren't going to get into this, Dave and Buster's. You need to have proof of vaccine. That's the only way out. If you had it before, it's meaningless. But yet, now, if you are age 65 to 79, you don't need a booster if you've had COVID. All of a sudden, the science changed there. That seems weird. So you may also need to be an adult resident of a long-term long-term care homes and other seniors living complexes. So the place that they said wasn't an issue at the beginning of this, I know my reading skills are not up to par, but the long-term living homes that were getting packed with COVID patients at the beginning of the pandemic because they said, "Oh, it's not a big deal. We can just put them with old people," are now turning out to be the people that are still allowed to get COVID boosters. An adult 18 years of older who are moderately to severely immunocompromised due to an underlying condition and treatment. So if you're not sick and you're not old, you can't get a booster. Which is what we said from the beginning. That's what we've been saying the whole time. Isolate sick and old people. Give medicine to people who are sick. Stop giving it to everyone. That's dumb. That's not cost effective. It's not medically effective. It's stupid. So now that you've come to terms with that, are you going to apologize for calling us all idiots at the beginning? No, of course not. We're fucking idiots and we just listened to you. That's where we're at right now, and that's the world that I don't want to live in, so that's why I question stuff. So, policies are changing, it turns out. It turns out COVID is not as bad as we thought. Or you thought. We all knew. We all knew we were going to be fine. We all knew that a mild to severe flu wasn't going to take us all out. It wasn't going to be 8 million dead. That's absolutely true. And that's why this reprehensible person tricked, I guess is what they're claiming, but she paid somebody to take a COVID vaccine for her, and now she's going to jail. So an employee named Susan Clark is convicted and fined for COVID vaccination fraud. Now, this article is interesting because when you go through it, it says she paid somebody, a person with multiple disabilities, $500 to take a Pfizer vaccination so she could keep her job in January 2020. She lost her job in March 2020 when the offending came to light. So the lady who took the vaccine came and said, "Hey, you paid me to take the vaccination, and I'm calling you out." So the irrational belief that the vaccination would get into your cells and trigger breast cancer is what she said. You did a lot of research into relation of the vaccination and spoke to people who had Pfizer vaccinations, she said. You went out into your own garden hoping to get bitten by a snake because you thought it would end up you would end up in the hospital and you'd have a legitimate reason to delay your vaccination, is something else that she said. So she was terrified of taking the COVID vaccine. That's what she didn't want to take it. She was just like, maybe it's going to speed up my breast cancer. Maybe it's going to do something. Maybe it's going to do something worse. Maybe it's going to seep into my cells, which is what it was designed to do. It's an RNA vaccine. It's meant to cycle through your system, get into your nucleus, and eventually attach to your DNA. I thought that was the whole idea, to create spike proteins. As far as I understand that, but she didn't manage to do that. So it was the context that you thought about getting someone else to get vaccine for you. It was when you approached the person sitting outside of a hotel having a cigarette. It must have been clear to you that she had disabilities when you went to the vaccination and pretended to be her carer. Your behavior in targeting a vulnerable individual. Holy, I'm having a stroke. I think I might be having a stroke from the COVID vaccine. Am I able to get compensation? Your behavior in targeting a vulnerable individual when you knew nothing of her medical history or any complications that may arise as a result of being vaccinated in this way is reprehensible. A judge said that. That is a super, super important statement. A judge said it is reprehensible to vaccinate somebody and not know the side effects. Do you fucking hear yourself? That's what we did to thousands and thousands of people. So there's lots of people that may have a heart condition or something along those lines, and that was not excused. You act like medical exemptions were a thing. They were only exempt. In my case, when they went through the exemption list, it was if you had an adverse reaction to the first shot was the only way you were getting out. If you had pre-existing flu shot side effects, bad ones, they had to be bad ones, like hospitalization was one way out, so you were already fucked for that because you had to have it on record prior to this. Or if you had an adverse reaction to the first one, so you had to take it in order to get exempt. Does that make sense? How dumb is that? You're going to go to a did everyone go to a doctor and make sure that this was right for them? No, they didn't. Most people just wanted to get into Applebee's, so they took a fucking vaccine. That's where we're at right now. And now a judge is saying your behaviors is reprehensible because you don't know the side effects of getting this person vaccinated. Shouldn't you want her vaccinated? Shouldn't everybody be vaccinated? If you were against getting this person vaccinated and the person who was trying to avoid getting vaccinated was concerned about the side effects and somebody was willing to take the vaccine, which seems to be a choice, according to everybody that we talk to nowadays, it's a choice to get vaccinated. You have the option. Why couldn't the person with disabilities choose to take $500 to do that? And if this is such a crime, why are they both not being convicted? Why is the person with disabilities not also committing fraud? She agreed to take money in order to fraud the government into a vaccination status. That should be a crime as well. Seems to be you're only persecuting the person that has some sort of disparaging view on the vaccine. So unfortunately, Clark was fined $7,800 in order to pay another $1,000. So $8,800. And she was also convicted for the crime. So she's bad. Also, this judge's hat looks stupid. So who really won here? Who really won? You look stupid and sound stupid. You look as stupid as you sound. Just understand that. It makes me so upset. That genuinely makes me very, very upset that you can single-handedly say it would be dangerous to vaccinate somebody without knowing the adverse side effects it could because they might have disabilities, but then also be fully on board with, but you were scared and you might have disabilities and your company was firing you for that, yet you didn't want to take that. A-okay by me. A-okay by me. But if you trick somebody else by giving them money to take the vaccine for you, that seemed to be a willing thing. The crime wasn't that you were going to spread this deadly virus that needed to be contained, and if you tricked the company into thinking you were vaccinated, you were going to kill everyone in the building. That wasn't the crime. The crime was you may have hurt a disabled person by giving them the vaccine. That's the crime. How can you possibly let that go? How can you possibly say both things can exist in the same world? We're living in an upside down world, and I don't like it. I'm not okay with it, and this lady in a stupid hat is getting to tell us what to do, and if you agree to wear the stupid hat, you shouldn't be a judge. I think that should be the test to being a judge. If they say, hey, you got to wear this dumb wig from the 16th century, you go, no, I'm not going to because it's current year, and that would be stupid to do. Then you go, you've passed the final test, you get to be a judge. You have critical thinking, and you will think for yourself, not just do what you're told. A judge who wears this stupid hat will always do what they're told because you're wearing that stupid hat. You look ridiculous. I believe that was only used for people in very, I would say, 15th century, 16th century, 17th century, somewhere around then, when they had to shave their head because they kept getting lice. So you put on a weird blonde powdered wig. Don't quote me on that. I don't know that's true, but I'm going to go by that because British people are dirty. Anyway, so I don't know if anybody who follows this guy, but apparently he's getting pretty big in the conservative community. His name is Mark Slapinski, which sounds like a fake made-up name. I believe that this guy is a computer-generated person because one look at his social media posts is that he would seem to be very, very red-pilled. He would seem to be a person who doesn't trust the government, who constantly is questioning things, who would never want to just fully go along with some sort of government propaganda campaign or anything like that. Because all of his posts are about the liberal government lying, they're unlawful, the CSIS investigation, the China investigation, things. He says, raise your hand if you think Jordan Peterson is a hero. Pierre Poilievre should be the prime minister. Justin Trudeau should be in jail. Chrystia Freeland should resign. The Freedom Convoy was an epic party. All things seem pretty red-pilled and based. And then we go and we find out that this guy went and the things that he said during the COVID pandemic are unbelievable. He's completely 180'd. This guy is disgusting. He's the epitome of Mac from Always Sunny running into a building saying, I'm going to play both sides. That's what he is. He's playing both sides right now, and he's losing.
Today we're going to talk about discrimination. Do I believe that unvaccinated people deserve to be discriminated against? Absolutely. And let me tell you why. We are in a pandemic. COVID is very real. COVID kills people, and one of the best ways to prevent against that is to get vaccinated. And at this point, if you haven't caught on to that, then you're most likely an idiot, and you deserve every bad thing that happens to you.
You hear that? If you decided to not take the COVID vaccine that a judge ruled could have been dangerous to that disabled lady, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. This guy thinks you're an idiot. You should just trust the government. Just shut up, and they told you should. The government's going to not let you work unless you do this. So shut up and take it. But then also don't trust the government. They're into some shady stuff. Government's always been bad throughout time, except for currently right now. Right now they're good, but like last week they were really bad. But they've cleaned it all up now. Their act is completely clean. And that's not even the worst of it. If you go to this can't be true. This is what I refuse to believe that this is a real take that a person has. This is an AI generated hot take by Pfizer, because there's no possible way somebody could actually believe this and continue to function in a conservative capacity.
We've had a big problem with anti-vaxxers, and I have a solution to the anti-vaxxer question. And some might even say the final solution to the anti-vaxxer question. Here's what we're going to do. Just to start, we're going to take little stickers and we're going to put them on the houses of all the unvaccinated people, just so people know who they are and where they live. And if that doesn't work, what we're going to do is take all the unvaccinated people, put them on cattle cars, and ship them off to work camps. Nice, big, powerful work camps, either in Northern Ontario or in Quebec. And here's how this is going to work. We're going to force them to work, free labor, get them to build us stuff, and segregate them. So it's killing multiple birds with one stone. Not only are we taking these dirty, disgusting, unvaccinated people and removing them from society, but we're also using them to work for us. And we can even loot them and use their assets to fund other parts of society. Now, the way this will work is that they can leave at any time, as long as they are vaccinated. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's the one thing that as a society we could do to solve the problem, to solve people just not wanting to get vaccinated. I've tried everything. I've tried talking with them. I've tried being nice to them. I can tell you that doesn't work. The only thing that works with these dirty, unvaccinated people is maximum pressure. You got to keep that pressure on. And if it means labeling them, if it means taking them, stripping them of all their rights, and sending them to work camps, I'm all for it.
So, this is being pushed currently right now to shut down this guy as a conservative speaker. This has been spread on Twitter. All of his replies are about these videos. There is 0% chance this is serious. I don't know if you guys all caught on to that. There's no possible way he could possibly believe that he wants to take every unvaccinated person and put them in concentration camps for free labor. There's no way. And if he does, he doesn't deserve to have any speaking points. But I think, I just have a keen eye for things like this, that this guy is trolling. And nobody's picking up on it. People are, if he is as conservative as what he says he is, and he's also saying things like this, it would have to be an Alex Stein 99 level troll. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Otherwise, he believes that the final solution would be to send people to concentration camps if they don't agree with the government. One of the two exists. We live in one of those two worlds, and I just choose to believe the better of the two. It's just the only way to survive, because otherwise you're going to have a hard time living. So I think that's all I have on COVID vaccine. So I have a hot take. I don't know if anybody follows Linus Tech Talks. Linus Tech Talks. He almost destroyed his career, and people were willing to do it over language. And it turns out, I don't know if anybody is aware, language matters. It turns out the way you say things and what you're saying and the context around it is really, really important. Because when you censor language and you get people saying things the way you want it, when you really nerf all the edges of language, things get misunderstood and things start falling apart. So let me show you this clip, if you haven't seen it, from Linus Tech Talks podcast, I guess. I don't know. I don't watch this. But I saw this clip going around, and it just proves such a strong point of if you censor language and not care about context, you just word bad, take word out, you get situations like this.
It hadn't watched in a long time, from like the early 2000s, and just the casual the casual sort of gay humor, casual use of the hard R.
Oh, really?
It's jarring. Yeah, it's jarring now. And for
casual use of hard R.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like okay, it was an episode of American Dad. And it was just
Really?
like, yeah, it wasn't for shock value. It was just like used.
Whoa.
Right? Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? That was in 2003 or something.
So right now, you're like, did American Dad say the N-word? I don't remember that. I don't remember him. That seems odd. They probably did, but weird. I don't remember that, but Linus just watched it. He must know.
Like 2002.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna deny that I dropped my fair share of hard R's back then, because we didn't even the term hard R didn't even exist. It hadn't watched in a
So what happened is he went and said, I'm dropping hard R's. I used to do that all the time. I used to drop hard R's regularly. So I watched this clip and laughed hysterically. I get to stand here on my Apple box and go, told you so, you dum-dums. If it would have been even funnier if he actually got some serious backlash, like a company, like they didn't, because what happens shortly after that clip is that they go like, are you using that correctly? Are you using the hard R correctly? And he's just like, yeah, he means retard. That's what he said. He doesn't even say it. He's saying like, it's like the slur for mentally handicapped people. And they're like, no, that's not hard R. Hard R is something completely different. And they beat around the bush the whole time. They never want to say the N-word. They never want to say any, they don't even want to say the N-word in most of the clip, because this poor guy that is with Linus is like his life flashed before his eyes when Linus was just going, yeah, I use the hard R, yeah, casually all the time, man. It was back in the day, back in 2003, we were all just hard R'ing it up. That was fun. And he's like, what did I sign up for? What? A few years ago, this guy was a extreme racist, and they're like, no, that's not what was happening. And even if he was going around saying the actual N-word before, the context would be super, super important. It is super, super important. You mean he sang rap songs a lot? He sang the actual lyrics of rap songs in 2003? Yeah, I could believe you did. I could believe you said things like that. I can believe that you said the actual N-word, hard R, probably in the last 20 years in a joking capacity. I could bet you did it a few times, because if we were all honest, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal anymore. If we censor language, things like this happen. When you take words out of people's lexicon, you get issues communicating. That's what it is. He was trying to convey a point about how people used to say words back in the day and now they can't say them. But you can't say the words anymore, so nobody knows what you're talking about. What words couldn't they say? We don't know because you can't say them. You get into this circle argument because you're like, so what did you mean? It's like a child trying to tattle on somebody swearing. It's like, he said a bad word. And he's like, well, so what did he say? He said it, and I don't know. I don't want to say it. But what did he say? Was it really bad? Did he say a slur? Did he say, no, he called me a doo-doo head? And you go, oh, well, that's not that bad. It's like, because the context mattered. You needed to know exactly what they said and how they said it, because that's important. And if you knew that Linus from Tex Talks was going hard R, going in downtown Harlem, yelling at black people, hard R, saying that they're terrible people, that would be, you know what, maybe your ears would perk up. Maybe you wouldn't want to listen to his tech tips. But if he was just going around, maybe just saying the word retard, because we used to call everything retarded because this clip is retarded, the idea that people can't say retarded is retarded because it's fucking gay. That's where we're at right now. We're at a world where you can't say those words, and now we're guessing what you mean. And then you can come up to you can get misunderstandings where you think a perfectly innocent, nice guy was just rampantly using the N-word. And there might be people out here who clicked off of this video right after that when Linus says the N-word, my God, and they're just done with him forever. Because they don't understand, because language is censored, because they don't want you to understand. They want you to say, they go, oh, bad word. They want you to be like a computer. They want you to go, you see a bad word, you end it. You go, that guy bad. Bad word mean bad person mean I don't talk to them because they have bad ideas. And that's exactly what the entire government wants. They don't want us talking. They don't want us worked up. They don't want us saying things that they don't like. They want everything to be nerfed. And then the first time you get hit with that cold water, or you walk outside of the world, the Nerf world, things get really sharp. Things really hurt. And that's where we're at right now. We're in the hard R world right now, where you have to say hard R and nobody knows what you're talking about. And that's sad. So, last thing I wanted to talk about is something that has been going around on social media. Khalil Azad. I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but it was a big Black Lives Matter talking point in the last week. Apparently, he was beaten to death by the cops and thrown in a river, and they let a dog rip him apart. That's, if you read on social media, that's what he's just. They just sicked a dog on him and then abused the corpse and then threw him in a ditch and just left him there. And that's the entirety of the story. So there's some autopsy photo, there's some stuff, but this is what's happening. Khalil's family and Black Lives Matter community of Minnesota claims that the Robbinsdale police brutally killed their 24-year-old. The police officer said that they tried to make a DUI traffic stop on July 3rd, 2020 in the early morning, 2022, in the early morning. The car was not stopped by the drivers and a pursuit ensued. So already he's suspicion of a DUI and running from the cops. Finally, the car stopped. It's in Lakeside Avenue. The driver lost control. Reportedly, the man crashed the car, got out on foot, and was never caught. That's according to the police report. And then his body ended up floating in a river. That's all we could know. That's all that anybody knows. But there's scratch marks on him. There seems to be, if you see like the picture right here, this is his arm or something like that. They say this is supposed to be bites and scratches. But according to the police report, he was hiding in a riverbed. He ran through a forest and hid out in a river because they did have dogs. So I don't know what's happened, but the police seem to say he probably drowned. It says postmortem reports show that he probably drowned. That's what the coroner says. But the family says they have ruled out drowning because he knows how to swim. I don't know if they know. I'm going to go, most people that drowned know how to swim, because otherwise they wouldn't be in the water. That's most of the time. There's obviously the few that fell into the water and they couldn't swim and drown. But I'm going to go, most of the drowning cases are people who were swimming and something happened and then they drowned. So you can't rule out drowning because someone knew how to swim. I almost drowned and I also know how to swim. So that doesn't really work. But police said that Azad likely fled on foot when they tried to interrogate him. The last time anyone saw the Minnesota man, he was passing. His passing has created several questions in the mind of people, and have tried their best to make an article out of for the appropriate readers. We pray that his God give rest to his soul. Yada yada yada. This is a Black Lives Matter article claiming that the police brutally assaulted this man, left his body in a river, and then just claimed that none of that ever happened. If we were objective about this case, we know a few facts. Khalil Azad ran from the police. That's for a fact. We don't know if the police caught him because we have no information on that. But what is more likely? After he ran from the police, he got away, got to a hiding spot, something happened, and he drowned. Like he was hiding in a river and he was trying to go under. He got caught, the heavy current, something like that. And he hit his head, maybe slipped and fell and hit his head and drowned. Or that police caught him, abused him, beat the shit out of him, let their dogs loose on him, and then when they realized they killed him, just dumped his body in a river. What if we were just going, and you'll go, oh, well, police brutality, so obviously the most obvious thing is police. No. We just go, what's the most likely thing? One human job was to interrogate another human for a suspected DUI. That second human ran away from them. Do you think it was more likely that the first group of people caught him, beat the fuck out of him, and left him for dead in a river? Or that he ran and something happened and he drowned in a river while trying to escape from the police? Because the police claim they never found him, and the last known sighting of him was him running from the police. So at the very least, we know he was trying to get away, and people that run from the police usually did something bad. Every time I ran from the police, it was because I did something wrong. When I didn't run from the police, it's because I knew I did nothing wrong, and I was like, so what would you like to talk about? I didn't do anything, so I'm not really concerned. So there's a lot to think about here. There's a lot to digest in this, but I'm going to go out on a limb without knowing any of the information that will come out months from now after the investigation is fully formed and closed. He probably ran from the police. He probably got away. He probably hid for some period of time, and he probably died in that river because he was hiding. That's most likely the situation. Not that there's a conspiracy in the ranks of the police to abuse young black people and leave their bodies floating in rivers. It's one of the two. And if you believe one, then I can understand your perspective on the world. And if you believe the other, it's tough to follow along. But anyway, thank you guys. If you're listening to this early on the website, then you are my favorite people, because this is early. This is stuff that you're not supposed to be listening to. You're supposed to listen to this once it comes out to everywhere later, on current event topics that are going to be posted later than the topics. So I have an idea that we're going to get a surplus of these episodes, release them all, and then you guys are going to spread them like the plague. But right now, you guys get the insight and get to listen early. So thank you for joining me while I'm creating this podcast. This is the third episode. I'm working on a few things that should be fun. I have a recording with a drunk driver that I need to edit through, but it should be pretty amazing. So I'm going to try to get that next time I record, and I hope it just gets better. That's what I'm hoping. Every week we're going to get a little better, and I hope that the world gets a little better. So thank you guys.